And so there you are. You wake up, it's a great day, and you're ready to go into your studio and make some tracks. You walk in, you've got your drink and your snacks ready, you fire up your MIDI controller, you shut the door, you put on your headphones, you open up the DAW, and absolutely nothing happens. We've all been there. I think at some point or another we've all had just this sense of creative block where we have absolutely no idea what to do, or maybe you feel like you've been writing the same track 100 different ways and need to try something entirely different. So, howdy doody buckaroonies, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron. And in this episode, I wanted to share with you 5 of my favorite creative exercises to get around beat block or writer's block or whatever you want to call it. If you've got some great tips to get around this as well, be sure to leave that down in the comments below. This is going to be more of a talky video because this is going to be dealing in some more abstract concepts that aren't necessarily something we can just demonstrate in real time. So if you're not into that, feel free to come back for next week's episode. First up, one of my favorite creative exercises that I think you should really try out is simply writing music for a video that is on mute. This is really easy to do, and you can do it with just about anything you want. So if you've got a favorite movie that's got some really cool scenes or whatever, or maybe a music video, or maybe even a movie or game trailer or something like that, try pulling it up alongside your session, or better yet, dragging the video into your DAW if your DAW supports videos, and then shut the sound off and see what starts to stick out to you. This is one of my favorite ways to work because I feel like sometimes when you watch a movie or whatever, you can start to pull sounds and ideas out of it, and you start to hear things in the back of your head. And I think this is a powerful thing to try and develop as an artist and a creator, is to pull some of the more abstract ideas out of something in order to turn out your interpretation of them into a sound or a song. I find that this really works best with stuff that's like super stylized and just interesting to look at, because sometimes it pulls out an idea or a mood or a theme or an atmosphere that's easy to pull from and then create your track. Another great idea for the same thing as well is to take something like a dance routine video and just take off the sound, because that's going to have a more musical flow and rhythm and pacing and kind of indicate build-ups and drops and little things like that. So it's a great way just to get an idea flowing and maybe spark a little bit of inspiration and have something to write against, rather than being set there with an entirely blank DAW and no idea what to do. It gives you kind of a writing prompt in a way without being too obvious and giving you some exact prompt to work from. Idea number 2, steal your favorite song. This is a really easy thing to do, and is something I do myself quite a bit when I'm just running out of ideas or maybe need to approach something in a new way, or I find myself maybe writing in the same key over and over. I don't know about you, but that seems to happen to me a lot. So what I like to do is just pull up the chords from my favorite song. You can use something like Hook Theory, or go to Ultimate Guitar and find the chords, or even use a site like Chord.U where you can just put in a YouTube video and it'll give you the chords for that track, and ta-da, away you go. Here's your chord progression, now make something with it. Now, some people might be concerned with this practice and think you're just going to end up writing the same song, just a different version of it. And I find that that's not necessarily true. A chord progression isn't really the end-all be-all of a song. A lot of that comes down to melody and the sonic palette and the way that those sounds work together. So if you just need an idea, getting a chord progression that sounds good to you is a great way to start painting the base canvas of your track and start filling in the blanks from there. For an interesting twist on this exercise, try creating a song from a similar build of elements. So if you've got drums that sound sort of similar, or maybe some synth presets that sound similar, or you've got a similar guitar setup or whatever, try and take all of the same elements and build something new from it. Kind of like the first exercise, this gives you a broad sense of what's there and a theme and a mood to work with, but it's up to you to fill in the blanks and start designing something unique from it. And I find that this can be a lot of fun. It's kind of like remixing a song that doesn't exist. Number 3, and this is for all my sound design friends out there, try using presets if you always design your own sounds. This is something I really struggle with myself a lot, because sound design and creating music are two pretty different processes. Although you can mix and match a little bit, sometimes you pull too far into one direction and you don't make enough progress in the other. I might sit there fiddling with sounds endlessly for hours and end up only writing like an 8-bar loop, but I've built 100 new presets. Whereas on the inverse, if I focus on only using presets, either ones I've made myself from my personal collections or just presets that came with whatever I'm using, I find I make more progress in actually making some music. If you've never designed your own sounds before, this is a really great way to build up your own personal collection of sounds you like. It's also a great way to learn sound design, and it's pretty easy to do. You can even take the factory presets of something and just apply a couple of tweaks. You would probably be surprised at how simple this is to do. Idea number 4, try setting a time limit. And if you're really feeling angsty, try announcing your song before it's even done. I find that nothing really gets you sweating and working quite like a deadline. So this is a great way to just force yourself to work with something. I don't know about you, but I tend to have a lot of commitment issues with my songs. I'll sit there and think, what if I tried this? Or what if I replaced this? What if this section was longer? Should I mix it again? Does the mix sound that good? Do the drums sound dumb? Is this synth thing too weird? Blah, 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 blah. And I end up having this work in progress that goes on for like months in some cases, where I just sit there fiddling with this song and it never really gets done. I'm just opening it, fiddling it, getting frustrated, and leaving it. One of the funny things I've learned over time as a producer is that the end listener really doesn't care about like 99% of everything. If a average listener listens to a song and goes, yep, that sounds pretty cool, then your mix and your track is done. This is a great test and is something I do with my wife all the time. I'll have her come in, listen to a segment of the song and say, does that sound good? She gives it a thumbs up, then I know it's ready. I feel like we often get this skewed sense of what kind of bar we need to aim for. Of course, there is kind of a professional standard, and you want your songs to sound clean and your mixes to sound nice and the song to be, cool and as best as it can be. But all of the little details really don't matter to the end listener. We end up getting this weird sense of hyper polish that needs to take place. And I think that's because we ask for feedback from other producers and our producer friends and whatever, and they have little nuances and things and stuff they might do differently and whatever. So we feel like the average listener is going to listen to things in the same way with a super critical ear and say, well, I would have done that differently. Or, I sure wish they used an 1176 instead of that optical compressor or whatever. Why did you use that reverb plugin, idiot? That will likely never happen. I'm pretty comfortable in guaranteeing that that will never happen with the average end listener. I think this is a great way to get around commitment issues. And if you have a bigger following, you can just put out a social media announcement or whatever and tell the world that it's ready when it's not and force yourself to get it done by then. Otherwise, just try setting a deadline for yourself and make it happen. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell whoever. Just get the word out there and set the expectation for yourself to have it finished by a certain date. I think this idea is also really helpful because it forces you to dial in on that one project rather than opening up another project and trying to work on 1,000 things. I find that I always have way too many works in progress going, and the more I force myself to see things through and finish a track before starting a new one, the better that things end up being. And I find that this has really helped me to develop a sense of how to finish things and how to get ideas and how to make sure that I'm working effectively. So try setting a deadline, get the word out, and get something done. Finally, number 5, write out a song title and then write a song that fits it. This is actually a pretty powerful thing and is something I do myself a lot. I have a huge list of just song titles and ideas or little phrases or certain things that I've written down, and that way whenever I'm stuck for an idea, I can go through my list of song titles and find something that stands out, because I think a title, much like the earlier exercises in this list, sets a theme and a mood and a tone and gives you a kind of set direction and writing prompt to work from. This is super easy to do and takes like 12 seconds. If you have a notebook or even just putting it in your smartphone or whatever in a list or whatever app, this is a great way to just always have something you can work from. And if you've got a track finished and you have no idea what to call it, this is another good way to just open up your list of song titles and say, yeah, I think that one fits, throw it on, and you're done. Another idea alongside this as well, if you're more of a visual person, I think, is to have a list of song titles and then try and create a mood board for it. If you've got a song title that sounds cool, try and find some pictures on Google or whatever that fit that theme and fit that idea. So when you sit down to work on that session, you've got a whole bunch of inspiration and ideas to pull from that kind of curate the mood and vibe you're going for. Because I think bigger than anything else in a track, it's all about the vibe and the atmosphere and the overall mood. If you get that right, it's bound to be a really good track. As a couple quick bonus tips here, I think one thing that might get overlooked a little bit is things that are generative or random. Now, some people think that this is, not real music, or this is stupid and you didn't write it, therefore it's not yours, or whatever, and this is entirely bullshit. I think it's really great to sometimes try these things out. If you're just out of ideas or maybe need something new to work with, this is a great way to start sparking something different, because these things being random will generate ideas that you often wouldn't think of yourself. yourself. Most of these plugins are pretty inexpensive, so I think picking one of these up is well worth it because sometimes you just need a new idea or maybe a second section to your song or whatever. Maybe you've written the intro, but the drop needs a great melody and you have no idea what to do. These tools can be incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. And even if it sounds like garbage, it might give you a little section that you like. So with a couple quick tweaks, you end up making something that sounds really awesome and perfectly suits your track. Further to that point, one other bonus tip is to just get some new gear. Now this is kind of a last resort. Obviously you don't want to buy a new piece of gear every time you open up your DAW and have no idea what to do, but I think sometimes new gear or new plugins can be pretty inspiring because it's something new and something different and something that you want to explore. And if you want to try something weird, you could even go on to KVR or something and go to the free plugins and download some random weird free plugin and see what you can make with it, because it forces you out of your typical workflow and out of your comfort zone and into something new. And you might make something awesome, you might make something that's totally garbage, but at least you did something instead of just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Every once in a while, I think this is a good way to just shake things up. Sometimes if you just buy a new synth or a new MIDI controller or a new plugin or whatever, it's a good way to just invest in something new and break out of the cycle, because I feel like we all end up after some time with a kind of go-to standard of what we use in our songs and what we use for this sound or what we like for this or what sample pack we use for this. So this is a good way to introduce something new, and it gives you a bit of an inspiration in that you paid money for it, so you want to get some value out of it and you want to get some return on that investment. So it makes you dive into it and start to create things with it. So if you've got a little bit of cash lying around, or maybe you've been thinking about dipping into the world of hardware or something, try it out, because you never know what that could come up with. And I think it's a great way to find new ideas, because certain gear has certain sounds and maybe leans into a certain thing. So it's a good way to just start getting the ball rolling and figuring something out. To wrap this up, there are two other things that I think are worth mentioning here that have helped me a lot in the past and I think might help some of you as well. Number one being the Oblique strategy card set. You can find a link to this down in the description below, and I find this really helpful. I don't know what it is about it, but it's kind of abstract, weird writing prompts that sometimes don't make a whole lot of sense that can start to get the creative juices flowing, or at least set a direction for something. If you've got something you're working on and don't know where to take it, this can be pretty helpful to start getting some ideas, formulating, and make some progress with things. It's very, very useful, and I really, really like these. Finally, don't forget the power of just recording weird sounds. As a sound designer, this is something I do myself all the time. I always have my field recorder with me, and when I don't, I've got my phone, and I'll just use my phone's microphone to record little things. If I'm out and about at, Target or whatever, and there's some weird kid's toy, I might record a couple samples off of it. Or if I've got a whole day ahead of me, I might set up my field recording equipment, go out, record a bunch of sounds, bring it back, chop it up, do whatever, and see what I can make using only those sounds, or only those sounds with a couple of extra added bits on it. And I think these can be some really interesting ways to, again, shake things up and get out of your comfort zone, because I feel like most of the time, whenever I have creative block, writer's block, beat block, whatever, it's just a matter of forming habits and then trying to break out of them, because I feel like I get stuck in my ways, and whenever I really shake things up and try and take a total hard left turn, that's when the really cool ideas start to come out. And I think that's really it for this video. I know it was kind of short, but I think it's an important video to make, and I get asked about this quite a bit, so I figured I would sit down and do it. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something, and as always, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome. If you've got some tips of your own to get around beat block, writer's block, creative block, whatever you want to call it, be sure to leave those down in the comments below. That does it for this one. Cheers to you, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.